3, 2, 1, go. Yep, so we're back to 2004, early 2000s flick.
Yeah, a long time ago now.
It's hard to believe, 20 years ago, the early 2000s was that far away. I suppose we should start with the man of the hour, M. Night Shyamalan. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of his, actually. I think this is a terrific movie. I know it's kind of rewatching it during the week and searching around for some sort of reaction to it. It seems to be forgotten. It's his movie that came a few years after this, The Happening, gets some really hostile reactions to it. But, I mean, he's got a pretty impressive career. Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and this I consider really top-tier films. I kind of go against the grain. His movie, relatively recent one, Split, gets a lot of rave reviews. I thought that was a bit overrated. I do like it, but I think some of his earlier work is...
Was that part of that, what do they call it, like the Shattered Glass trilogy or whatever it is? I don't really follow those. Yeah,
I'll talk a little bit more about him a bit later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like him. I think this film, James Newton Howard there did the music. It kind of... I understand some of the criticisms it does get, because it kind of teases something that it never quite delivers on, like this opening. It's very dark and sinister and gothic. You think you're in for a really sort of tense, unsettling horror film, and it's really not that. There's a little bit of horror flavored through it.
It's almost like it's a family drama more than anything else, isn't it? It's not a survival horror or... Like, being an M. Night Shyamalan film, everyone goes into it expecting the twist, and they're very preoccupied guessing what the twist is in the film. But the trailers and all of that leading into it, I think you're right. Like, it does promise something, and even watching it, waiting for it to deliver on that promise. Funny enough, if you're actually paying attention to the lead up to it, it's really not that at all. Like, even from the opening with this funeral shot with Brendan Gleeson. It's really not that at all. Like, I mean, maybe we're led to believe that it was one of the creatures that killed this boy, but as we discover later with Joaquin Phoenix as Lucius, it was because the boy was sick and they didn't have the proper medicines. So, pretty much right out of the gate, it's not really promising much of monsters at all, is it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting this film. It's a terrific film.
I mean, the music, as you were saying with James Newton Howard, the violins in this film are just top-notch, second to none.
Yeah, the music is just so beautiful. It's stellar.
Such musical a ridiculously high-caliber cast as well. And we're talking about, especially with names like Sigourney Weaver, who are still very prominent for the time, but we were quite removed from things like Copycat, and Avatar hadn't happened yet. So Sigourney Weaver was known, but not to kind of a younger audience. So to have her name, like second or third billing leading into this, and have her playing Lucius's mother, I thought that was a very nice, solid role for her as well.
Yeah, I'd forgotten she was in it.
Yeah, so did I, actually. Yeah.
And I haven't seen all of his work, but he always gets great cast, doesn't he?
Yeah, I haven't seen. I think the woman who played the sheriff in Signs, Cherry Jones, I think her name is, or something.
Yeah, she's good.
She rocks up in this as well as one of the elders, and it's not a big part, but I recognise her straight away, and I'm like, I love that. Like James Cameron's big on reusing actors. Like, it's a very and not just reusing them because you're familiar with them, but the role that they're suited for and how to get good performances out of them, and roles that are well suited for that said person. Like Brendan Gleeson. I mean, you get what's written on the box, don't you?
Yeah, he's great in this as well. And I remember Cherry Jones. She was in a later season of 24, and the film looks terrific. The production values are really high.
The set design is crazy, isn't it? Like, you could easily believe at this day and age with things like drones and or like in like satellite imagery and all that kind of stuff, you could easily believe that this has gone undiscovered and this is happening right now, couldn't you? Like it just looks so real. And I found it quite interesting, although it's going to be hard to comment on this without addressing the plot twist. But the color red being the bad color, as the village folk call it, and bearing it and not associating it, like it is kind of hard to address things like that without going into the actual twist. And spoiler alert, people, for something that's 20 years old, what this compound, which is essentially what it is, like this village kind of rich people lockdown kind of thing, like preventing crime and having a nice peaceful kind of, atmosphere, and no one can do any wrong, and red being bad and shunning red. It's mighty convenient, and this really stuck out to me on a rewatch last weekend when I was going through the film again, was that red being the color of blood, meaning this town has never seen bloodshed before either.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbology and meaning in a lot of this film. Yeah, particularly with the color scheme. Yeah,
the red. I do love this shot here with the reflection in the lake. And we can speculate over who that is, but I think that's more of a tantalizing kind of, whetting the appetite of what's really going on. And I do love the solid boundary in the back shot here when William Hurt is addressing the kids. William Hurt, who sadly is no longer with us. What do you think of him?
Yeah, he's terrific as well. I think one of his later roles was in the MCU.
That's right. I think Harrison Ford's replacing him, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think that's the plan for them. Yeah, and the creature just dropped off the skinned animal, I think, is what they were going for there in the earlier shot.
And they also make a mention of the the broken neck. And then we get those we don't speak of. I quite like this classroom scene, and I love the chimney in the back shot as well. Just to really solidify, you could easily buy the kind of 18th, 19th century thing that they're going for here. Like, it's very well removed. Although going into this film with the opening shots of the woods, you're not really expected to believe that, because I don't think any of the trailers shown, because as William Hurt says here in this scene, he says they don't come into our valley, is what he says. He doesn't say village. So, in the trailer shots, when Joaquin takes off his hood and walks beyond the barrier and all of that, you're not really... There's nothing really there to assume that this isn't in the present day, is there?
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because I guess it depends on your knowledge of history. So an interesting discussion I did find is some people were onto it in the sense, there's some little clues, in this scene, if it truly was set when it was, women wouldn't be allowed in this meeting.
The High Council, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and there's a couple of little anachronistic details. Now, whether they were deliberate or whether it's just Shyamalan putting a few little clues in there, I thought, yeah, that's interesting. I never stopped to consider that, because I never picked up on any of this at all. And the thing about twist endings is it's so hard to have a conversation on his films, because it just degenerates very quickly into, I guessed it after 10 minutes. Oh, hang on, I guessed it on the first trailer. I guessed it from the teaser poster. I guessed it from the first fucking draft. Good on you in the internet.
Yeah, I really don't like that. Even something as I would call it a beloved film, but I would say even Science gets that a lot. People are quick to talk about, oh well, the aliens are just a they're an analogy for being a demon, and Graham Hess is fighting his demons and all of that. What gave that away? Guys, I mean, clap for the handicap. What?
Yeah. And it's the same with the trailer for his new film, Trap. No one's talking about it. Everyone's got their thumb up their ass trying to predict the ending. Just sit back and enjoy it, for goodness sake.
I know, and his cinematography, the way that he... look at how beautiful this shot is with Joaquin Phoenix and Sigourney Weaver. Candle lit. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love the rafters on the roof for the upstairs. And just real quick, that's Michael Pitt, who was big off a film previous year or the year after with Ava Green called The Dreamers.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, I saw that years and years ago as well. Yeah.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, he's a big boy off that. And he was big in one with Sandra Bullock, a murder mystery, though I can't remember what it is. I think Ryan Gosling was in it as well. Sorry, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was in 2002.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have seen his. Yeah, his face was familiar. I've seen him in a couple of random things over the years.
I think it goes without talking about. If we're talking about, there was a time when, just to address Joaquin Phoenix, I mean, like, he's almost in Samuel L. Jackson territory, isn't he? I mean, like, what hasn't been said about his catalogue over what he's done?
Yeah, I'm surprised he's been around as long as he has. I first saw him personally, as in my first film I saw of him was in a film called To Die For with Nicole Kidman around the mid-90s, but he was established before that. Pretty amazing career he's had, and he's brilliant in this. I don't think there's a single actor in this that does slum it. I think all the supporting cast just do a stellar job. He's really good in this. It's a very understated.
Well, also, I think something that's I think something that also goes along it is that you do kind of like when you cast Joaquin, especially at this era, like he was big off Signs at the time. You've also got to remember this was the same year as Ladder 49 as well, an action where he was the hero in that with John Travolta and Robert Patrick. So So the fact that he's cast in this and he's got this ambition of going to the towns for medicines, but he doesn't really seem to have a whole lot of screen time, even though his presence is felt in the film. He's not, like, the film kind of happens around him. He's not really the star at all, is he?
Yeah, Ivy's the heart and soul of the movie.
Yeah, of course. And that, I believe this is Judy Greer who plays the sister.
Yeah, I've seen her in a few things as well.
I'd like to point out, Judy Greer and Bryce Dallas Howard played sisters again in Jurassic World.
Yeah, okay. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, Judy Greer was the divorcee of David Wallace, Andy Buckley, who sends the kids off to the aunt, who's Bryce Dallas Howard. So, 11 years later, they played sisters again.
Yeah. This is a funny moment. She just throws herself at him. Nah.
Well, I think, and this goes both ways as well, doesn't it? Like, this goes for guys as well. Don't lay it all on the line for a Sheila. Ladies, the same deal with a bloke that you really like. Don't do that because, I mean, it'll send them running for the hills, won't it? Especially if they haven't picked up on the signs. I do like this moment with William Hurt. Don't tell anyone else about your intentions until you've spoken with the young man, because he knows that this ain't gonna fly.
Yeah.
I love the white dress as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they did such a great job making the village feel really immersive. There's lots of comings and goings. Yeah, lots of comings and goings in the background and all these little details around each set.
I love the cobblestone chimneys built off to the sides, because there's some engineering that's going on with the houses that isn't appropriate for the time.
Yeah, again, there's these little subtle clues. If you pick up on them, you know there's more going on behind the scenes.
Like, it literally stops just short of, having a power socket and a hairdryer, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. And because he's such a meticulous filmmaker, it's hard to believe it's done on, it's not some B movie they're working on, right? They would have, it's not an accident, it's deliberate. It would have to be. He's got such a meticulous eye for detail.
What an interesting way to introduce Ivy, Bryce Dallas Howard, into the film. Don't you think? Through a C-list character in the grand scheme of things to cut straight to this, it's a pretty unique way of bringing the star of the film into the fold.
Yeah, was this her first film? I think it was.
She was about 23, 24 when this happened. I was looking that up. If she's about 48 now, and you roll the clock back, she was very young at the time, very fresh-faced.
Well,
they all were. Like, look at Joaquin.
Yeah, she did a stellar job in this. I'm a big fan of her. I haven't seen everything she's been in, but I think in the interim she's kind of moved into directing. I think she directed a few episodes of The Mandalorian.
I think the problem that Bryce had was that she ended up being attached to films that were beneath her. Like, she is an amazing actress. Why the hell is she in Terminator 4? You know, like,
why does that movie even have to be made?
Yeah, she found herself attached to things that were just so beneath her. But anyway, I'm glad, she's Ron Howard's girl, so doing her own thing. So yeah, she's moved into that kind of behind the scenes work, and from what I gather, a lot of her stuff is the more well received aspects of what she's attached. So you know what, good on her, keep doing you. I want to put so this is Jesse Eisenberg before he's had a lead role in anything here.
Okay, I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, the future Lex Luthor, if you want to call him that. Brendan Gleeson, I mean, we can talk probably all night back and forth about this bloke. I was saying to my nephew when I was watching it with him, talking about, because he asked me who were some actors that he might recognise, and I said Brendan Gleeson's one you'll probably know. And he asked me, who's that? I'm like, you'll know him when you see him. And when this scene came up, he said, Mad Eye Mooney from Harry Potter. I'm like, there you go. He's just that kind of guy. Like, I know him as the sheriff in Lake Placid, which, Hector, I think it might be best if you and I didn't speak.
Yeah, he's very funny in that.
With Oliver Platt. And, he's what's another one? 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, he was in Troy.
He was Menelaus, I believe, Agamemnon's brother.
Yeah, Kingdom of Heaven he was in as well, I think. So. Yeah,
no, he gets around a bit. God, he must be in the Heart of the Sea, a Ron Howard directed movie with Chris Hemsworth and Tom Holland.
Yeah, that's a good one as well.
Yeah, we'll have to do a commentary on that one of these days. Joaquin, the character of Lucius Hunt. I found this one very interesting because one of the things that sold me on this as a kid, when I saw Signs, it creeped me out. And I was a young boy when I first saw that movie, like the music. Mel Gibson was great in it and all that kind of stuff, but we're not talking about Signs. Just, like Meryl, the character of Meryl really kind of did something to me. Like being like the younger uncle, looking up to his big brother and being the youngest of a family myself, there was a lot I kind of connected with that character. And then when I went and saw Ladder 49 and saw how that movie played out with him in that as the character of Jack, again, top stuff. And then going into this, like, I really was expecting him to sort of be this kind of a bit more in the film than what he actually was, but Lucius Hunt really wasn't designed to be that now, was he?
Yeah, well, he's very... Yeah, like I said a minute ago, it's kind of... There's a quiet powerfulness to his character.
Yeah.
It's somewhat understated. He's not the macho, all-action...
It's more of the spirit of him. Hero. Yeah.
He's, it's very understated, and it really works. Because he's quite happy as... Yeah, it's a really selfless kind of performance as well. He really does give Bryce Dallas Howard time and room and space to shine. I thought that was a really interesting scene just before, where Noah is hitting the kids, and there's just a hint that it's not a game. He's kind of doing it on purpose, and there's kind of a little dark side to his persona where he's not all innocent, and it's not a game. It's just this kind of hint that he is capable of escalating violence. And
someone told Evie that he struck a kid earlier, and she arrived to the scene just to see that kind of not playfulness about it, and she just broke the rules for him there. So you're starting to see that kind of...
Yeah, if she puts him in the room, he knows the consequence and the punishment, so maybe the later events don't happen, but she kind of made a serious blunder there. She let him off. And particularly because one of the themes of the film is rules and following rules. And
yeah, it is, yeah.
Rules, and he's not, and she did not follow through with the consequence.
And which does, in a way, fuel her journey into taking the plunge that Lucius always wanted to do. I love how timid Joaquin plays the character when Ivy is around, even though she can't see him. She makes a mention of seeing a colour, even though she's blind. I don't know if they use contact lenses here or if she's just very good at bunging it on. But I love the way that he plays this kind of shyness, and he really sells it in the voice as well of the character. Like when he took the note out to read to the elders, and how he answers her questions, like he pulled that out of his pocket, like his voice kind of quivers. Like he does a good job at voice acting the character to an actress who can see him. Like he's very good at doing that, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, and it establishes he's a bit of a loner for his character.
Well,
so
he's an only child,
and his interpersonal skills probably aren't the best.
From what we gather, he's also like the only man of his age in the village as well. Like I know the sister marries off to someone else. I believe Lucius is about 30. Or something, 30, 31, something like that. Yeah. In this, like, there's a fair age gap between him and Ivy. That much is obvious. It might even be in a sense of the real actors as well. But I found that quite interesting, the way that he plays that.
I like this little moment with the frog.
Yeah, the frog.
What a dickbag thing to do.
Well, I suppose we should talk about Adrien Brody. 2004 Adrien Brody to now. Like, what are your thoughts on him?
Well, he was quite a big deal when this came out because he won an Oscar a year or two before this came out.
Sorry. Just real quick, I believe still to this day the record is unbroken. He is the youngest person ever to win that Oscar.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I think it was The Pianist or The Piano or something. I never got around to watching it, but yeah, he was a very hot commodity when around the time this came out. I found, it's been hard to get a beat on this character. I don't, and it's
Noah.
Kind of, yeah. You don't want to say, but you sort of have to. The joke from Tropic Thunder, like you never go full retard.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating to see how he plays it, because there are moments where you think he kind of is sort of using it. He's
kind of bunging it on to see how far he can get away with breaking the rules. As Lucius just pointed out, he didn't get those berries from inside of the border. He's gone into the forest to get those. And there's a scene later where Lucius goes and picks those same berries where Noah told him where they were. And you can't help but think that maybe he is playing it up for kicks.
Yeah, or he's using his disability to deliberately get away with doing the wrong thing. I found it really hard to sort of settle on him as a character. Sometimes I think he's a breath away from ruining the whole movie.
Yeah, it is a little too much, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just... Yeah, I'm just... Sometimes I think he overdoes it a little bit, but there are some scenes he's really, really good in it, so it's... Yeah, I found it really hard to sort of block it down.
I think a good way of breaking it down is, like, for example, Benicio del Toro as DJ in The Last Jedi. He's got that very strong accent, but in the script and in the direction, they gave him that stutter as well. But you've kind of already got, like, it's a little bit too much. Like, with Noah, I can't help but think with the script and the acting, and I don't know, maybe Shyamalan kind of pushed it over the edge a little bit. I really don't know the behind the scenes. You have the motion tick, you have the verbal stutter, you've got, like the spasm sometimes, he can't quite talk right. I mean, all of them all at once, it's a bit too much for what the character is trying to sell. Maybe drop two of those quirks and it's a bit more toned down.
Yeah, but it's a really sort of memorable performance. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, in these early stages of the film, he revels in things going wrong. There's a scene later at the church. He's in trouble, isn't he? But because they've, like you mentioned earlier, they've never been exposed to violence, like the enormity and the gravity of what he's done. There's that just chilling scene. He's really good there as well. So yeah, interesting dude. I'm not a huge fan of his overall body. I haven't really followed Adrien Brody's career all that strongly, but yeah, very distinctive when he sometimes shows up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he's got a very distinct look. I believe somewhere I read, because of all of his stunt work and all of that, he's broken his nose like 20 times, and that's why he's got that very angular nose.
Well,
Like,
yeah, it makes sense.
Suchomimus, the snout. They got the same snout. Well, I always thought when Heath Ledger passed away as the Joker, he might have been a good fit going into The Dark Knight 3 or Batman Begins 3 or whatever you wanted to call it. I always thought he might have been a pretty good Joker in a different time and place.
Yeah, well, I mean, with a good script, he could, do anything. He's got a lot of range.
And, well, his follow-up to this was with Peter Jackson in King Kong, where he really kind of reined him in, didn't he? Like, yeah, Jack Driscoll is probably one of his better roles. Now, this moment lives rent-free in my head with Joaquin Phoenix, because this was the real trailer moment when William Hurt says, "We don't go into their woods, they don't stray into our village," and the hood comes off and then he walks in and then you get the release date. This moment lives rent-free in my head, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like, Joaquin is just, like, he's the man. He's commodus, like, he's doing what he does best, and there we go. And you'll notice it's a paint bucket of yellow as well, the safe colour.
Yeah, I mean, this is just classic storytelling, crossing the threshold into the unknown.
And I love the out of focus shot because, see, this is the thing that I love. Like, I know a lot of people throw around less is more, and it annoys me to some degree when they use less is more to excuse sloppy writing. What I love in this, and he did this in Signs as well with the aliens, when Lucius picks the berries, something is moving and you don't see what it is. You don't even see a red cloak. Like, it's coming up, you just see a figure move, and he says to the council later, "Those we don't speak of, one of them witnessed me at the town hall meeting." But when you see this, you don't even see a red cloak, so you don't even know what it is. Now, maybe that's M. Night, not oversaturating the monster, or maybe that's him telling you it's not entirely a monster just yet. But you'll see what I mean in these frames coming up right now.
Yeah.
As the camera pans over, you don't see red at all. You see a figure quickly scurry away. Yeah. So that's what M. Night does best, isn't he?
Yeah, he's unable to get a decent look at it one way or the other. But the red, the way it's depicted here is great because it's all sort of seeding that epic moment at the end. So yeah, all of this stuff is just really solid groundwork. He's laying a really strong platform here. The writing's terrific in this. It's so bizarre that it's not better received, but anyway, it is what it is because I think the writing is terrific.
Definitely with Ivy. Like if we want to talk about strong female characters and all of that, I mean, like, what better than a young woman who's handicapped in love and, her love wants to do all this kind of stuff and then he's taken out and she does it on his behest. Like doesn't Ivy tick all those boxes? Like, especially in the realm of, retrospect and looking backwards, why aren't we talking more about this character? Like doesn't she tick all the boxes? She's right up there with Sidney Prescott for me. With what she does in this film.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the movie isn't well received, but no one says a bad word about her performance. She's terrific in it. So, and she was, it's again, it's just the internet has made it impossible to have a legitimate conversation. She, if it came out today, like everyone's sort of drawn their line in the sand and we're in the trenches. It probably wouldn't be as well received. It's we just get so fucking bogged down with bullshit.
Can I just say,
really, it's just exhausting.
Can I just say, I love the woman on the porch and looking up at the light from the guy's perspective. I'm sure most people in our age bracket have walked their girlfriend home from time to time. I do have an appreciation for shots like this because it wasn't all, smash or pass back in the day, or whatever the kids are into now with their Netflix and chill. I do like this kind of moment, like, just between them, and they do have a few tender moments like this another moment coming up when the border is breached,
Yeah,
and
it's probably the highlight of the film.
oh yeah, easily. And I'll talk more about M Night Shyamalan's shadowy kind of figure thing when that happens. But I also love the way that the best way to describe it is the way Joaquin is doing this as Lucius. He's acting with his voice in the scenes with Ivy, not with his posture or anything like that. Like, you'll notice his voice quivers and stuff like that. Like, he's very, like, I know he stammers in front of the elders, but he also does make a mention in that statement, my mother is unaware of my intentions, because she does have quite the power on him. And we saw that with the black box, and it's interesting that all of their containers are black, like a literal black box in the village. Now, I don't know if this moment was ever in the trailers, but this gave my nephew a jump scare. He was sitting there waiting for the monsters the whole time, and then when this happened, he shivered so hard and we were having an earthquake when we were watching it on the big screen, on the fold out. But yeah, this moment here, this boom. Suppose, and I love the, like, for whom the bell tolls, literally. What did you think of the creature design with the cloak and all of that? What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's another one of those things. You're really kicking yourself for not picking up on it, like I certainly was. It's obviously a man, but because they're not what you're expecting, and they're so garish, and almost like they're over designed, and you don't have time to really process it when you're watching the film for the first time. But it's obviously a man, like, and maybe that's one of the reasons it gets circled in on the hate that it does. It's, we should have picked up on it because it's obviously a man. But they deserve their, like a lot of people. I was upset at the time that there were no real monsters in it, but I don't, like, a good story is what else, like, it leads to an inevitable, inexorable conclusion, and this film does that. It would be we want the sugar hit of a real monster.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be, it just doesn't give you as much to chew on and discuss if it were.
Isn't it interesting that there's real electrical lights and they have a fireplace? Like, there's street lamps outside, but they have fireplaces, and there's like a cauldron on the boil. I love some really good character beats with Lucius here. Like, he cares only about the townsfolk. He wants to get medicines. He helps a little girl get indoors. He's helping a family lock up. And he's the last one to get to safety when this is happening. And this is the first time it's happened in this village's living memory. So it tells you a lot about this character in terms of selflessness, doesn't it? He's putting himself last to make sure everyone else is locked up because he's not scared of these things the way everyone else is.
Yeah, and it could be just... And one of the themes of the movie is human nature. He may just instinctively pick up on the fact that their leaders aren't overly fazed about these creatures.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of beats with that as well, like the magic rocks that Ivy has when she has two escorts. Like, well, if these have been around the whole time, how haven't we known about these to keep these bastards away? I will say, M. Night is very good at doing his twists and his... Because really what he's going for is kind of man is the real monster, isn't it? Like, man will always be man's worst enemy. Like, humans will always be humans' worst enemy kind of thing is what he's doing here. Like, they try to make this kind of violent-free, crime-free... And this did always give me chills when the red cloak comes out of the darkness. This always did give me kind of chills and stuff like that. But, like, that's what he's going for. It's like human is human's worst enemy, isn't it? But I think the worst thing you can do with a twist is over-explaining it. Like, when you end the twist and people are going like, wait, what? Like, that's the better way to go about it than them having the, wait, what? And then you've got, like, 5-10 more minutes attached to that explaining what the twist is, and then they go, well, that just sounds dumb. Like, I kind of think the village falls into that trap. Like the twist of it being set in real time, like that was enough. Like, if you want to drop the bomb, that's enough. Or opening the black box, like, that's enough. Or I think Actually, I'll no, put a pin in that. I'm going to save that for when it actually happens, for what I think about that. But something that I think this one kind of drops the ball on compared to something like Signs or Old or any of the other kind of M. Night Shyamalan films is it does kind of over-explain the world that it takes place in, and it doesn't just end on the way that he normally does.
Yeah. It's
if that makes sense. Like, sorry for the rant.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like I said, like you said, we'll probably discuss that more towards the end, because the capstone scene was, yeah, Lucius saving the day and those epic violin kick in.
The music is fantastic in this film, especially Ivy's theme. There's one that really made me tear up when I was watching it again, and I'm not really an emotional kind of guy. Like, I got a pretty strong stomach for things that I see on the internet, but the moment towards the end, I'll discuss it when it actually happens. But the soundtrack to this is second to none. I reckon this soundtrack rivals John Williams, like, on his best day in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, pound for pound, he's had just as long a career and just as many big movies. So, but yeah, it was great. And again, attention to detail where Lucius turned around to lock the door as he saves the day. Just little things like that really make it a great moment.
And how he didn't bother to stop and check out the monster. Like, the way that he talks about those we don't speak of and how he owns his actions here and all of that, you would have thought he would have been the one, and he holds the record of sitting on the stump for the longest, that he would have wanted to take a look at one of these things for real, or maybe try to reason with it. He doesn't chance that either. Yeah. Like, he doesn't, and you can see that maybe he was scared of the thing, or you could chance that as he didn't want to break the truce in a way that they would see it breaking it. Like, if I challenged them on my own ground, when they came in to give us this warning, they might see it as hostile. So when he locks up that house and he hides behind it when one gets on the porch, like, he's clearly still thinking of the townsfolk, and that's what this character is most about. And I do like this beat with William Hurt when he says, "You're braver in ways that I'll never know." They're actively trying, because he's on a mission to see this through, and it is going to expose the secret. So they have to up their game with the monsters. So the monsters have to break the truce. They have to come into town. They have to slather the doors. They have to try and scare Lucius out of it, but he's still stuck on this path. And because he cares about these people so much.
Yeah, he's so great in it.
Again, the actor that can sell you with a look.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you know you got the real thing, the real deal. So what do they call these? Like, there's an actual word for this, like the outdoor luncheons. Like it's like a commune, isn't it, or something like that?
No, a commune is
Oh, that's like a church gathering, isn't it, or like a towns meeting or something like that?
Oh, it's in the ballpark. Yeah, maybe a communion you're thinking of, but that's kind of different as well, as they make a peace offering.
I love that, throwing it on the blade. Well, they made a mention that Noah and Lucius and Ivy were at the resting rock, so it makes you wonder what this thing is. And how there's two children there as well, like the creatures detect innocence or something like that, which is a theme throughout the film as well. So why take two kids to the boundary like that?
Yeah.
And there's Cherry Jones there. You take care of yourself, Graham. Like, this is 2 years removed. But I just want to say, like, this is 2 years removed from Signs, and she was the sheriff in that. And, like, the makeup is amazing. Like, the hair, what they've done with her, like, the makeup for the elders is top-notch in this film.
Well, that whole thing, the costume design's fantastic in this film.
She looks like 15, 20 years older than what she should actually be at the time. And this is, like, not even, like, a year and a half after Signs. No, it's just amazing how they've done this. And, like, I'd like to know that behind the scenes, did they go out of their way to study costumes of the Sign, like of the era that they were trying to set this village in, or did they Frankenstein different bits and pieces and things like that? Because I don't know, like, it's kind of interesting. Like, you see, like, ladies wearing, like, leggings and stuff like that under their skirts, and it makes you wonder if they streamlined it, or if they just made up their own thing, or if they tried to replicate it, or if it was a bit of a Frankenstein.
Yeah, a couple of people have pointed out online, there's a couple of clothing items that are anachronistic and wouldn't be around for the time period it's set in. But again, I can't determine either way. Are they just a genuine oversight on the part of the filmmakers, or are they little clues that that they're not living in the time period that's presented? Because it would be, despite the fact that he's a billionaire, you probably couldn't recreate this sort of way of life with 100% accuracy, despite all of his billions that this guy is worth. So again, you can't
walk off.
Yes, they could be like a real world technical level. They just, there's a couple of clothing items that don't belong there, and it was a genuine error by the filmmakers. They were trying for total immersion, or they are little clues that give away the ending.
Well, it's not quite as stupid as a Starbucks cup on the bar in Game of Thrones now, is it? Or Sean Astin wearing a tuxedo underneath his Hobbit clothes during Gandalf's farewell. So maybe you got a point there, yeah.
Yeah, just channel a bit of Harrison Ford. Hey kid, it ain't that kind of movie. If the audience is worrying about your hair, we're in big trouble.
I suppose we should probably address it. The relationship between Edward Walker and Alice Hunt. Because Lucius made a mention that there is a romantic attraction between them, but he won't touch her. You got that little moment with William Hurt and Sigourney Weaver.
Yes.
That kind of seemed a bit like a side plot that I don't really think needed to be in the film at all, because it doesn't. What's been built so far, and how far into the film are we exactly? Like, we're about 40 minutes into it. It doesn't really go anywhere, does it? It kind of seems like a bit much. Like, maybe it was meant to go somewhere, and I understand like the aristocracies of the village and the elders and all of that are from like past traumas. They met in groups and stuff like that. But the relationship between Alice and Edward, it seemed a bit silly to me on a couple of rewatches. What are your thoughts on that?
You could be onto something there. I'm not sure if there's much deleted material.
It seemed a bit much, yeah.
You could, it's already sort of bursting at the seams with the main plot and the subplots now. Perhaps they thought it was a third wheel, so to speak, but there is their final, well, not final scene. They do catch up as Ivy makes it home, but there is, I do have a little bit to say about the scene when they are alone. It's probably better suited there, but it's a rare sign of restraint that you don't often see in movies. So Shyamalan, he treated it really well, but it's still a little bit away. Remind me about it, or I'll remember. I'll address it then.
I love this moment when Lucius, even though Joaquin is totally out of focus, stay with Ivy. She'll tell you some funny stories, get you laughing again. Like, these two kids have basically seen their equivalent of a boogeyman, and I love how Lucius is just standing there listening to it totally while she hugs the children. They're almost like parents themselves to the next generation, even though they're totally out of focus. I love that little beat a lot with Lucius and Ivy, because it's pretty much the last time we see them together again until Noah makes his play.
Well, it picks up on a theme that Brendan Gleeson's character touches on a little later, about the next generation.
And they threaten his house. Like, there's a reason why that's strung up over his house, because he's broken the border, he's challenged them. They're trying to break him down. Like, misery kind of loves company, I guess you could argue, but they don't want him.
He's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
Pure and simple.
Stop making sense in the YouTube comments.
We've got a couple of pigs sticking their head up out of the mud.
Yeah. You've been banned from the room, Lucius. You know what you did. That's what it is. I'll never forget, someone got banned And their quote from the admin when they asked to restore their account was, "Why did I get banned? I didn't break any of the terms of service." And the admin replied with, "Just because you didn't type it didn't mean you weren't thinking it." Like,
Exactly.
oh my god, is that seriously what it's come to? This moment,
Tyrannical moderators, it's what the internet was built on.
yeah, I know, and it reminds me of what Jason Lee said in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Are you two retarded? That's what the internet is for. Slandering others anonymously. Stopping the flick isn't gonna stop that. And I love how the wedding set is still out there, and they just couldn't be bothered, taking it down because of the kids being scared and all of that. And kids have the best bullshit detector in the world. Like, always listen to your kids.
Yeah, I think, this is another seminal moment.
This was the moment that I was talking about that really sells it for these two. And their faces are barely even in the shot, but they totally sell it with their voices. I love how gentle hers is, while also, like, commandeering the situation and taking lead. And he even says that verbatim, "Why do you insist on taking lead when I want to take lead? If I ask you to dance, I'll want to dance." And pretty much what I've been saying about these two was addressed in this one film and one scene, sorry. And there you go, the porch scene. There are all the porches. Why are you here?
Yeah, it's a lovely little scene. And the way the mist is rising in the background, and the illumination of their faces. And it's a very selfless performance from Joaquin Phoenix. A more selfish, egotistical actor would probably want some script rewrites, but he's so great.
He's playing her foil, isn't he? Like, he's playing her foil, like it's her moment, it's her character, and he really is just hitting the ball back to her every time she delivers it to him. Like, she's giving it the full send, and he's foiling it back, sort of like what Sam Elliott did to Patrick Swayze. Like in Roadhead, like, you know what I mean. Like, you get the foil character, like
they have such great chemistry together.
Yeah, but they're used as they hit the ball back to the main character. You know what I mean? Like, they're used as that kind of thing. Like, not like in a plot device kind of way, because Lucius is very much his own thing, but it's entirely to be the foil of the character of Ivy, and it works very well. Like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and so on and so forth, like Hioma and Genosuke. It's, you have the foil, like the back and forth, and that, and when Lucius is taken out of the picture, you get the full payoff of that, and that's what it's designed to do. But top stuff.
And it was also established earlier. They've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, since they were kids, he used to hold her hand.
Yeah, so it's really great, and it's a rare sign of restraint. It's a sort of restraint you don't get a lot in films anymore. And just how understated it is. It's so great. He's a really quality filmmaker, Shyamalan. He's better than I don't think we understood or appreciated in the 2000s. Just what high caliber filmmakers were, and they were at their peak.
Yeah, M. Night Shyamalan, he's, it's funny how his name suddenly, creates controversy whenever you, like, bring him up in conversation, which is why he was one of the first things literally the first thing out of my mouth was, what did you think of him? Because these days, his name seems to be associated with bad or mediocre, and it's interesting how people, like, don't get me wrong, Steven Spielberg has had his fair share of turds as well. Like, George Lucas, I love the man, but not all of them have been out-and-out hits. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's entitled to their off day. They haven't had their Weet-Bix. But for some reason, like, I've been seeing a lot of videos crop up lately talking about how Signs is not as good as you remember. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's better than I remember. Like, every time I go back to it, there's something new about it. Like, every A-side has a B-side in that film. It's perfectly contained. And I always do love the off-screen kiss, because it's not a romance sort of story, even though it has hints of that in it with weddings and small communities and stuff like that. I do love how that's not the focus.
Another director would fuck that whole sequence up completely. It would cut to, like, him with a six-pack, like fully fucking ripped the next morning, pulling his pants on, just ruining the whole mood and tone completely. It was a
it was a tender moment between two lovebirds. Like, that's all it needed to be. Like, they don't, and she's no supermodel either. Like, she's very, like, sleek and thin and very young and spry and, you know, perky, all that kind of good stuff. But like their kiss literally happens. Like, it might as well have been off screen. Like, it might as well have faded to black and just have a kissing sound effect. Like, because that's all it was, a tender moment between two lovers. Like, that's all it needed to be.
Yeah, it was really well done. And yeah, another director would have just overdone that completely. And Shyamalan wrote this film as well, so he really deserves a lot of credit.
Or they would have had Lucius hanging upside down while Ivy wakes up in his bed.
Yeah,
or something dumb like that.
Yeah, really cringe and tone deaf, and you see it all the time in movies these days.
It's way too much, isn't it? Like,
they cannot fucking just get that right balance.
You know,
another director and writer would have completely forgotten about the sister. So to give them a postscript here is really good as well. There's a lot of good stuff going on in this film.
I also want to point out, we don't know how Lucius rejected Kitty, the sister. We don't know. So maybe he told the sister, look, I love Ivy more, like, it's nothing on you. Maybe that's how he knocked her back. So when she asks, if you have a problem with me and Lucius getting together, I won't have it, and she just accepts it. You don't know. Maybe Lucius did tell the sister that his devotions and his heart belong with the blind sister in Ivy. So maybe she knows from his perspective this is going to happen regardless. Like, I appreciate being asked for the blessing, but Lucius has already told me. Like, deeds not words, but we don't know that. So maybe she already knows.
Yeah, it's effectively played off screen.
Yeah, so this moment here, when Noah finally, this really shocked me when I saw this in cinemas, because I thought, you know, again, like, Joaquin was going to kind of be the lead and get a baseball bat and beat one of the monsters and all that kind of stuff, but then this happened, and I guess was kind of my first exposure to having your expectations subverted, but definitely in a good way, because I was very attached to the character of Ivy at the time, and I was wondering what was going to happen to Noah at this point, not in the kind of will they understand him kind of way, but more of how will they deal with this kind of way, which essentially is what the entire film boils down to, because this, how do they deal with it, kind of unravels the entire society by chance with Ivy, and even Edward Walker says that when he explains what's going on to Ivy.
Yeah, I always remembered that really disturbing moment where he ums and ahs, takes a few steps forward and back,
and then stabs him again.
Yeah, I didn't remember a whole lot about the film, but that's one moment I did remember from watching it years and years ago the first time. Because something needed to happen, because essentially the plot's been resolved now. Lucius no longer...
He doesn't fear them at all after they directly threaten his house.
He's with Ivy, so we need something to force someone to go into the woods again.
And Ivy does believe in the creatures as well.
Yeah. This is another...
The music totally sells this bit.
Adrien Brody's fantastic here.
Yeah, a bit more of this, I think. Yeah, Adrien Brody. Like, maybe
not exposed to violence, so they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and he's covered in quarts of blood, and you have skinned animals as well, and the townsfolk make a mention of he won't say whose blood it is, so they... You know, it's interesting how they phrase that, whose blood it is, but animals have been getting skinned as well. Yeah. So you don't know, maybe it's just his sick kind of pleasure.
Yeah, and that's what I meant earlier. He's... Like, he knows exactly who it is, and he could easily tell them. He chooses not to.
And he doesn't go out of his way to correct them either.
Yeah.
And I love how Ivy... Now, this is one of my favourite moments with Ivy in this entire film. It's a one-take shot, and I know everyone loves their one-take shots, but when she starts walking to Lucius's place, you get this voiceover from Bryce Dallas Howard, and she's counting, like, 22, 23, 24, 25. She's counting the steps to his place, how she gets around the village being blind. She's counting her paces, and I thought that really sells how she's so proficient in getting around this village and how she can make the journey to the town to get the medicines herself. She's counting her steps, she's checking her blind spots, which are all of them with her cane, and she's reaching out, really she's counting her steps, and I really love that kind of voiceover, and it really stuck out to me on a rewatch. I really enjoyed that. And I've heard that a lot of blind people in real life do things like that as well.
I noticed the counting steps as well, and the look just before when the other girl told her the story. You can just tell she instantly doesn't know all the particulars, but she knows that what Noah has done.
I will say one of the lines that stuck out to me was that "you answer me right this moment." The way she screams that and the voice quivers, like voice acting is... It doesn't have to be animation all the time, but when she says that, like that really does pull on my heartstrings a little bit. And I love when actors really use their voice like that. Like Michael Biehn's a good one, Adam Driver's another good one, Bryce Dallas Howard is a very good one. When they sell you on their voice, when they do that, and she knows what's happened, and you get the line of "I can't see his color anymore," and it really does up the ante quite a lot. Like the film, like it's done shuffling and it's dealt now. Like us as an audience, like we got the cards in our hands now. It's up to us to play them. Jesus.
Yeah, it's such a well done sequence because she actively sought him out. She doesn't just stand there with her arm out like she normally does, and she knows deep down he would have checked in with her first.
Yeah, he would have done it by
just
now.
A really horrifying moment, really chilling.
And also when she's covered in, because she knows Noah was covered in blood. You'll notice when they're doing the when Cherry Jones does the delivery of the boy could pass at any moment, Ivy's standing there knowing she's covered in blood, and she's unfazed by the fact she's wearing the red color, and she doesn't know it's a farce yet with the creatures. She's standing there dressed in white, or off-white, or blue-white, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe I'm colorblind. But I love how she's just standing there. She's got the shakes going on and all that kind of stuff. And totally, like, the fact she's got red all over her is the least of her concerns right now.
Yeah.
I love that moment so much. I mean, this is something a lot of directors do today, and it bugs the shit out of me. They'll deal you some cards, or they'll leave breadcrumbs to go somewhere, but there's nowhere to go. Like, they'll tease something, but there's no payoff to it. Or it leads into, something that's so misconstrued and so turned around, it doesn't really pay off. Like, you've got Ivy, who, when Noah drops the bad color berries in her hand, we need to bury it straight away. She's covered in it right now, slapping him. So that's the A side and the B side of it. She does not care that she's slathered in the bad color. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, don't introduce something, like, don't leave the breadcrumbs if there's nowhere to go. And that's not just directors, like, that's writers in general. Like, comic script, like, whatever. Like, don't introduce something if it isn't gonna go anywhere. Like that's a big moment for Ivy. Even though she can't see it, she knows it's there because she rubbed it on herself. She doesn't care. Like, that's awesome. Like, I love that. Bryce, especially this moment here, like, oh god, she nails it. Far out. Like, very strong language.
Yeah, it's such a great scene.
Covington Woods.
Yeah.
And I will say this, like, I know William Hurt gets slammed a lot because of his portrayal as I can't remember the first name, but Lost in Space. What is it? Will Robinson was the kid. Who was the dad?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah. People were talking about how shit his acting was and that. I thought he did very good, and he also had such a very gentle voice, didn't he? Like he should have got more into voice acting. I thought.
Yeah, I mean, A History of Violence.
I mean, like I'm not saying he can't bung it on, but most people know him as the lovable dad, right? Like he's Ivy's dad, you know. He's
his role in A History of Violence. I'm a fan for life.
Yeah, how do you fuck that up? Now I should just ask you real quick. What do you reckon was the better moment? Him, like with the eyebrow raised, just shrugging to what was happening, or him actually saying the line in A History of Violence? I think it was the not using words at all to sell you on the disbelief that this dickhead got out of it.
Yeah, it was great. What a movie.
I love this bit. Yeah, well, that's for the History of Violence podcast. I love this moment of the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The best we can do is pray. No, if there's... Yeah, Victor, would you please be kind to answer my question? If there was anything that could be done, because the Victor is in on it as well. Like, yeah, we can do it. We have to make an outside trip, but no, we can do it.
Yeah, and it establishes what the because I wasn't sure the severity of his wound, so they were able to seal up his wound.
They've sutured it and they've stopped the bleeding, but the infection is the risk, and they need stronger antibiotics to get them off.
Yeah, so now we're sort of in sync with what they have to do, so he can be saved if they had modern medicine.
And this also backs up, even though it's like a chairman of the board kind of thing, like you got the elders, the high council, and that kind of stuff. It's the Walker estate, so he's the one who's funding it. So the ultimate decision, if he wants to send someone out there to be exposed, to be contaminated, so to speak, it really does lie with him, because they're just people he asked if they were interested on the idea. Like, they're not backers or investors, or at least that was the interpretation I got. It was his bill. He was bankrolling the whole thing, and they were just on board to start the community. They aren't like investors of any kind. They're just doing their own thing.
Yeah, because he mentions he had a wealthy father.
Yeah, and he mentions it to Ivy as well. I believe this is the scene. Oh, God, and William Hurt. I believe one of the last things he did was that TV show Humans, I think it was, with the androids, Aanother, and all that kind of stuff. I believe William Hurt rocked up in that. It was one of the last things he did before he passed away, sadly.
I thought he died relatively recently.
What, it was like, what was it, like 2019, 2020?
Okay, yeah, well, that actually, you're right, that is a fair while ago, yeah.
Oh, well, about 5 or so, six or so years ago, maybe 2018. But that was one of the last things he did.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I thought it was something, but my concept of time is all fucked up, so...
Oh, well, it's not just... it's not just yours. Like, I was going to pat you on the back and say, look, man, don't worry about it, mate, you will. I'm like, no, mine's fucked as well, because I don't think 10 years is that long, to be honest. Like, I know to some other people, like, it's a long time, but I don't think 10 years is very long at all. I think a good analogy that I heard once was what one of my favourite YouTubers had to say about the wait between Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World. Like, that was 14 years, but a lot of us that saw as kids JP3 in cinemas were about 10 or 11 at the time, so 14 years felt like a long time, because you grow up, you go through puberty, high school, you're your own man when the next film comes out, so it feels like a long time. But when you're an adult, say if you're like 22 when JP3 came out and 14 years on that, like, that's nothing.
Yeah, that's true. So your concept of time changes as you get older.
Yeah, like when you're done growing. Yeah, so like I kind of think that as well. But
yeah, I kind of misremembered. I thought Noah stole one of the costumes from this
under the floorboards.
Yeah, and then it's revealed it's under the floorboards. So
the reveal, like, I know I must ask you not to scream. We don't see what it is. Do you think this was too much too soon?
No, not necessarily. We're well into, the movie now. I remember being a little bit disappointed that
the monsters weren't real. But yeah, I think it's a much more interesting creative choice that they're not. It's because people are upset about the twist. Shyamalan packs like half a dozen twists into the final act of this movie.
I think that's what really hurts it. Like I think out of all of Shyamalan's films, this one leaves the most room for discussion, and for a lot of good reasons. The monsters in particular, while they're the flack of a lot of the thumbs down the film gets, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is where I think, with a few sort of alterations to the script, it probably could have been one of his more well-received ones. And I'm still going to save that for when it actually does happen. I think the ultimate twist, you probably already know what I'm going to say, but I'll say it when it actually does happen. So just put a pin in that. So this is kind of like the higher ups when the iceberg is hit of the Titanic. I do quite like this scene, and William Hurt nails it in this scene. If you type in William Hurt The Village, this scene comes up, and for good reason.
Yeah. Well, Brendan Gleeson is fantastic in this as well, because he really brings everything into clarity. Let her go.
If it ends it, it ends it.
Yeah, and it's such a great life lesson. People, any idea should hold up to scrutiny. If it doesn't, it's not a good idea. Like, good ideas get through, bad ideas don't. Bad ideas are easy to tear apart. If it's a good idea and it's a solid foundation, it will hold up under pressure. It will withstand scrutiny. It'll withstand adversity. And that's, yeah, it's such an experienced, nuanced, mature, honest appraisal of the situation the characters find themselves in. It's a tremendous moment. I really enjoyed Brendan Gleeson there.
It's such a nonchalant drop as well. Like, he's not even like the main focus of the shot. Like, he's looking away as he delivers that line. Let her go. Yeah. If it happens, it happens. And he's looking at the horizon. Like, he's kind of done with it as well. Yeah.
They need to put their faith in the younger generation.
And that's what William Hurt really does sell in that moment. Like, do you plan to live forever? Like, when Cherry Jones tells him, you made a mistake. Do you plan to live forever? And he appeals to them by saying, although I don't believe it was in that shot, but it does cut back to it later, what has happened to Lucius is a crime. We failed in our mission. Because it's happened regardless.
Yeah, and it will. These, and then there are some sort of sporadic real life true stories. Every attempt to create a utopia has ended in disaster.
It's not human nature. Like,
no, it isn't. And another line from Brendan Gleeson in the scene past: heartache is a part of life. We've become, and it's kind of a little bit more prevalent sort of now with the infantilization of society. We don't really seem to sort of, have an honest, mature appraisal of things. But yeah, human nature there is an element of violence inherent in human nature, and that's
it's not wrong. It's just,
it's human. It is. It's like asking a fish not to swim for a few hours. It doesn't mean we're going to be in the fucking Walking Dead or anything like that, but violence is an element of human nature. It's because we evolved, in an environment of scarcity. We evolved from hunter-gatherer societies. It's to sort of, it's just so interesting, these sort of people who think that, we're all going to have universal basic income, and we're all going to have technology that's powered by clean, green things, and everyone is going to be happy. These people are dead set off their rocker. It's not going to happen.
Well, that's why. And also, I think on that same token, the belief that we're all going to be controlled. Like when people were freaking out over things like COVID, saying, "Oh, the new world order is going to happen, and we're going to become a cashless society." And I think, do you really think, like, there's two things? You're giving these world leaders way too much credit, first of all. If they can pull off something like that, you're giving them way too much credit.
Like, have you seen some of these politicians? They could fuck up a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I know. So that's never gonna happen. And like, second of all, when has that ever happened? Like you look at things like Hitler, look at things like Mussolini. Like it has never happened ever. Like humans don't follow those rules. It's never happened. Like you look at the long history of Russia and its kind of containment in the Soviet Union. Those people are tough. Like they're not going to abide by things like that. Like no, people don't follow those, so it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating to read about. It's like a guy I know called it like these people who try to build their floating cities in the sky, and it all just comes crashing down. And we know that in the final resolution of this film, they haven't preserved the future of the village per se. They've kicked the can down the road there. Like I heard a good comment from from Chernobyl. It's like the cost of the truth. Everyone thinks about the cost of the truth. No one stops to think about the cost of the lies. As Ivy gets exposed to a big lie here. With
this one used to keep me awake at night because I was only about like 9 or 10 when I saw this in cinemas. When she holds that claw, me and my cousin just freaked out at this when she screams, "Those we do not speak of," and William Hurt like really brought us down from that with that voice. You know, it's like how he's very calming and great casting, great scene as well. Because as I was saying, like that voice, it really does bring you back down. Like from a scene as high as that, he is the perfect cushion.
And the legendary scene from Scary Movie, you know, those we do not speak. What you mean? The things you talk about, like every fucking scene.
Yeah, it's like Voldemort. You know, and like that's one of the things that I love the most about Maggie Grace's character, I believe, as Ivana McGonagall, when they're all talking to her when she's leading the defense of Hogwarts against Voldemort. You do know we can't keep our defense against you-know-who forever. That doesn't mean we can't delay him, and his name is Voldemort. You might as well call him that. He's going to try and kill you either way.
Similar thing happens in the Wheel of Time books. Like the Dark Lord is he who shall not be named. And he's in like every chapter gets mentioned.
Yeah, it's like we can't call him Melkor, but Morgoth. You know, like even Professor Tolkien fell victim to this. Like everyone calls him Morgoth, which I don't really like. Like I think Melkor is a much more intimidating a name, but because of licensing and the Silmarillion, you can't call him that. But we'll call him Morgoth. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound scary at all. Like Sauron sounds scarier than Morgoth, but you're not supposed to talk about him, so forget the name.
Yeah, the great enemy.
See, now, I believe this is an appropriate time to talk about it. I was going to save it until the creature, quote-unquote, attacks Ivy, but I think the real twist of this film should have been the one that does attack her should have been a real monster.
Yeah, I used to think that as well, but I admire his restraint because that's what I thought they were building to. And so we hear the line from Walker about how he read it in the book, there used to be real monsters there. And then I think you hear it again as a voiceover, so I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be like that's the twist. There's going to be a real monster that attacks her. But watching it a couple of days ago, again, I admire his restraint to not do it because I remember being very, very annoyed at the fact it was set in the present day. I felt it kind of deflated the movie a little bit, but like a lot of the things that the plot was building towards just become so crystallized with the present day reveal. The monster just kind of became a side issue.
Yeah, it didn't feel like so much.
I finally understood it's not a horror movie. Yes, we were misled by the marketing,
It
But
needed to
that's
be, though, yeah.
yeah, but that's every fucking movie ever made misleads with the marketing. So I'm not. It's particularly more acute with this one. But once you get over the fact that it's not really meant to be a horror movie, I'm kind of glad they didn't go with the real monster.
Just real quick about the real monster. Was this the moment that you wanted to talk about these two, or was it later?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
I said I'd remind myself, but thank you. Yeah, I love, again, restraint and this incredible moment here where he leans in for a kiss and stops and turns away just as she leans in and stops.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. It's because I'm not sure what could be gained if
They
if
don't physically touch at all, backing up
Yeah.
what Lucius said.
It's such a really interesting moment.
And he holds
I-
until she goes
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it's a bit undercooked, this plot line, but I thought it gave a wonderful. They do have feelings, but it's never going to happen. So he sort of quietly just lets it go and walks away. Because not to mention, it's a fucking scummy thing to do. He's married. It's like channel a bit of Randall. If you like one, talk to the other, but don't pine for one and fuck the other.
You know, and like I think about this a lot. Like, I know there's people out there who've done the wedding dance like 4 or 5 times in their lives, but I don't ever see myself getting married. But if I did, and even if that did end in divorce, it's only going to be the one. Like, you'll never hear me say the words, "Oh, my third wife said this to me," because that just sounds fucking dumb. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If anyone's
So I'm
listening to
glad-
this who's been married like 5 times, good on you. You did 5 times for it to work. I'm happy for you. All good. For me, marriage, man, you got to be damn sure when you pull that trigger. I will never say the words, "my second wife," ever in my life. Full stop.
Yeah. And it would have sort of morally compromised Walker's character because he's standing on his high horse here as a man of principle and morality.
If he kissed her and passed her up,
That's right.
he's lying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It compromises his character. So it's great. I don't know if that moment with them was in the script or not, but how they played it was terrific.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to play down that hand, man. Like, that's
Well,
what I think. I mean,
Because you'd never, like, how often in a movie do you see people not give in to their feelings? Like, it's hard off the top of my
like,
head.
a lot
to
of
think
people
it.
do that because it feels like, it reminds me of that, what is it, Big Tom Callahan's line. Why say no when it feels so good to say yes? But the real conversation comes from saying no, though, Tom. Like, you're not understanding. Like, oh, that's what it is. I mean, he's just thinking about all the times Pussy told him no. Pussy said yes plenty of times.
Dutch.
Yes, hug Wuggenbuck. Yeah, but there's the moment. Ivy's running toward Hope. Let her run. Because, and there's also another implication there, and that is she's going to be the head. Regardless if she marries Lucius or not, she is going to be the spearhead of where this community goes next.
Yeah.
Being the daughter of, the unmarried daughter of Walker.
Yeah.
And she is led by love. And you do have that moment, like, why does he allow her all this and bend the rules for Lucius and all of that? Because you had that moment earlier with the younger sister with Judy Greer. You know,
Yeah.
like, where is the boy in all of this? It's Lucius Hunt, but Lucius loves Ivy and he knows that, and she loves him and all this kind of stuff, and they make that exception because it really is, like, all the stars are in line. We're the only people in the way. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a good question to be asked there. I do love how she blocks out her ears. She knows it's fake, but she's doing it. I mean, being conditioned for so long, you could only ignore it for so long, I guess.
Yeah.
And not having the 2 escorts anymore and all of that. I just really like how she does that. But yeah, that kind of, you know, yeah, like that self-reflection. It's a very big thing in this film.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say about her, every sentence I say starts like that. I love how during her course wearing the safe collar, quote, and we don't even know why it's safe either, by the way. Like that's never explained. They just do that purely because why not? They wear yellow. I love when she climbs out of this pit. It's covered in yellow, and she has this moment of frustration trying to like kind of brush it off and wipe it off, but she's so stained and covered, like it's not even yellow anymore, it's brown. So like why even bother wearing it? Like she knows the creatures are fake, but she kind of like out of, I don't know, maybe indoctrination or whatever, tries to keep it on and salvage it, but she knows it's covered in mud and it's lost its vibrancy, its colour, so why even bother wearing it? Really stuck out to me watching it again.
Yeah, and it's so well executed. I love when heroic characters have trouble with seemingly everyday obstacles. Although it's not a hard and fast rule here because she doesn't have her sight, but it's like my classic example I always go to. I love when like ordinary gangsters give Superman shit and he has trouble defeating them. So like when heroic characters, when obstacles that shouldn't be a big deal just suddenly become a big deal. But it's not quite accurate here because she is sightless. So navigating this hole in the ground is really treacherous.
I do love padding around the rim of it, and she's feeling the log. Like she's getting her bearings, like she's learning how to... Like it reminds me of... and again, like I've never been blind, and I can only imagine what it's like. You know, like it's like I guess it's like me trying to describe what colours look like to someone who's been blind their whole lives. How to navigate their lives like that. It reminds me of that beat with Genosuke and Tenzin fighting during their duel at the end of Basilisk in the anime. When Genosuke and Tenzin start fighting, you notice they're fighting on the veranda, but Genosuke is quick to jump off the stairs and onto the ground, onto the gravel. He wants to get Tenzin onto the gravel so we can hear where he is during the duel. So it's that kind of... And I'm saying that, seeding it into this, like she felt and heard the snap of the twig, and she know her cane is no longer useful. Similar to getting Tenzin on the gravel, now I can hear where this guy is. Like, I don't have to wait for his voice. I can hear him walking around on the stones outside of the shrine. Similar to what she's doing here. And, like, relying on those other senses. And Bryce Dallas Howard's not blind, but... And again, I can only imagine what it's like, but really relying on your other senses like that, I can only imagine by like a fourth-hand account what that's really like for someone who's blind. I remember saying to one of my friends one time, I think the most creative superpower of all time is Bizarro's X-ray hearing. Now, why is it X-ray hearing? I can't understand. How does that work? Hearing in X-rays, it's like an oxymoron. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And my friend said to me, and he's not even a comic book fan, he said, well, Superman has X-ray vision, Bizarro has X-ray hearing. Well, when you're deaf, you rely on your sight, and when you're blind, you rely on your hearing. That's why those two things are opposites. And I thought that was really something to take note of, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. On his commentary for Daredevil, he wrote and directed it, Mark Steven Johnson had some interesting comments because he had some people who were blind to consult on the film, and he said something interesting. For a blind person, the perfect day isn't a sunny day, it's a rainy day or a windy day, because it gives them just so much more details. Like if it's raining, they can tell how high the roof is, or they can hear the trees rustling with branches and leaves and things like that. So I thought, just all these things that everyone else takes for granted, when the weather is rainy or windy, it just gives their world, all these details. I thought that was an interesting sort of comment, and they tried hard on that film to sort of, things like folding the different types of money bills and things like that.
Well, I'm sure you've seen your TV show C has covered a few things like that as well.
Yeah, I really like the show, but it gets absolutely slaughtered online, but I love that show. Yeah, so this is Noah in the suit, right?
Yeah. Now the spines on the back, like the hedgehog kind of look, like that really did. And also the voice, like that, like that it makes, like chilling moments. One take shot, by the way, as well, because they're trying to sell you, you're blind with Ivy, she's walking away, we can see what she can't, and then you hear the roar as she turns around, we can see what she can't. Beautiful directing. And I scared the shit out of my girlfriend at the time when he ran.
The aerial shot of her standing in the field of red is a huge visual payoff to all the red.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was in a trailer or not either.
Well, you'd like to hope not, because it's a great shot. It deserves the full effect. And also, when the creature suddenly bursts into life, running towards her, that was a really jump scare moment for me. And it's great on a rewatch, because you're kind of at the time, why is it acting so weird? Because you're unaware watching it the first time. It's Noah in the suit.
Yeah, like why is it standing with it, the back to her, knowing full well she can't see it? Like why is it doing that? And the payoff coming back and returning to like the sense of touch. And again, I don't want this to be a basilisk kind of circle jerk, but when Koshiro was blinded by Genosuke, there were those owls in Oboro's room, and Genosuke asked who crafted such lovely owls, and Koshiro says it was him. After Genosuke blinds Koshiro, and they're on the boat going to Sunpu, there's a moment when a kid comes up to a blind Koshiro and asks him what is he doing, and he has a knife and he's carving a wood sculpture, and he does it purely by the sense of touch, and he creates a little frog and he gives it to the kid, similar to like when Noah puts a frog in Ivy's hands, purely by the sense of touch, because he's done it so much. Even though he's been recently blinded, he still retains his sculpturing abilities, which I thought was really cool in that anime. And yeah, this moment here, like with the violin kicking in, one line that sent chills down my spine was "the animals." That still makes me think the creatures are real. Like he found a costume under the floorboards. "The animals," she says, and her heart breaks. Like, oh god, the animals. Like that really so makes me think the creatures are real.
Yeah, well, it pays off. Noah was the one killing them. I thought it was a little bit contrived. There's one under the floorboard. There's a costume under the floorboard. It would have been nice if they...
Like, why was it there? Like, it would have been cool
if they could have put Noah, like, had a way to get to the shed, but I guess it's going to be contrived one way or the other, but...
They would have had to have done it before he was locked up, like, before he stabbed Lucius. That was the problem.
Yeah, so it's a little bit contrived, but... It's all right. It doesn't.
And people were talking about like falling down that pit. Like that was a fucking steep pit. Like when she was in there was like what 12 something feet to the bottom of that. Like that could easily kill someone. Yeah. And he ran into it literally. And funny enough, he ran into it literally blind. And I do love that wide shot of him like that.
Yeah, he's yeah.
And she uses the weapon as the cane moving forward, so she's armed now. Like, she knew it was fake, but she doesn't know who. And there was that moment earlier, like, the skinned animals. I believe one of the elders is responsible for it. It wasn't one of the elders, it was Noah.
Yeah.
Like, the entire time. It's kind of like, you know, the killing joke in a kind of way. Yeah, these shots of Lucius, like, this one really got me when I first saw it. I was like, I mean, again, like, you got to remember the time that this film came out and the stardom power that he had. Like, we're coming off Gladiator. Like, I know he was a villain in that, like, as Commodus opposite Russell Crowe, and, you know, like, Meryl and all of that. Like, I mean, come on, like, you can't kill him off. Jesus Christ. Like, Ivy's coming back with the medicine, man. Like, you can't kill him off. You know, like, again, if this came out today, she would come back and there would be some solemn... It's too late. It'd be something fucking dumb like that. I'm sick and tired of the bittersweet endings. Again, you can't leave the breadcrumbs going somewhere if there's nowhere to go. Now, this recounting the You Will Be Alone and Lee of Cummington Woods, do you think... although Ivy doesn't know it, and I believe she still doesn't know they're inside of a rich compound, believing it's like 18th century or whatever. Do you think, in a roundabout way, those directions were kind of like a subtle confession from Edward Walker?
No, not really. It's just to remind the audience. There's a little bit of sort of mythological storytelling here. You've, like, she's on her own sort of quest, and he's so restating the directions and the mission was great, and she is clever enough to know she's hit paved ground, so she knows she's found the road. So I just think it's just reinforcing that sort of mythological kind of storytelling, like the hero on a quest.
I love the sprinting and the drastic waving of the spear, like of the tree branch, rather than the graceful like waving back and forth of the cane.
Well, she knows she can go a little bit faster now because it's unlikely there's any obstructions in a paved road, so she can sort of. But she's not full out running. She's going a bit faster, but still sort of being a little bit mindful of her surrounding.
So the opening of the black box, what do you think? Was this the right time to do it? Failure in the editing, or do you think this was the perfect time to do it?
Yeah, I was really shocked and stunned. I didn't see this coming at all. I didn't like it at the time when it came out, but
it felt more like an ending shot, I think, not so much a intercut, interspersed finale.
Well, it felt tonally wrong. But I understand now. I think it's a great twist. With the passage of time, I've really come full circle. Now I think it's a brilliant twist. I think because of the choices they've made, particularly so how they treat the monsters and how they treat this are sort of very much intertwined. The monsters aren't real, like the monsters are humans and horrible things happen. It's so much more effective. It's sad the movie's been forgotten, because it would have been forgotten even faster if the monsters were real, and it is back in.
Because it would have been now that I'm starting to think about it, it would have just been literally a monster movie. Like, it wouldn't have had a message if it was real.
And every time it doesn't. They they're in the dollar bin before you know it. But this ending, it's so well done.
Sigourney Weaver holding a young Lucius.
Yeah, so we know they've been there. They've been living in the village for decades now. So there's a lot of world building that happens in these final minutes of the film. I'm really impressed with it. I didn't like it at the time, but I've really softened.
As we're discussing it, it's starting to kind of win me over, because that was my main frustration kind of going into it. Like, I thought the ultimate jump scare would have been, especially because having the scene of Ivy knowing, they're all farce. It's not real. Like, the monsters, like, they're not real. Obviously, then the one that corners her is a real one, and that's kind of what, again, takes me out of it, because like the one that jumps her should have been a real one, but that's not the plot twist. The plot twist is it's present day, but I'm like, but you still could have kind of had it be a real one and it still be present day. Like, you honestly could have had the whoop, like, sound of the sirens, and that be the ending of the film, and have people go, what? Like it was like, this could have been the ending plot twist right now, and the one that attacked her was just, just the whipped cream, and the cherry on top could have been the car pulling up to see her, and the siren goes whoop, and that could have been it. I think that's what makes it kind of more one of M. Night Shyamalan's more forgotten ones, is there's a lot going on in the kitchen with this film when it comes to the payoff. Like, you have the opening of the black box. Noah's wearing the costume. They were all fake the whole time. It was the modern day. There's a lot going on in the kitchen for this finale.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I said, like, I hated this twist. Which one? He packs like half a dozen of them into the final act. It's I think one of the
better endings. Like, the film should have ended when he asked her, "What's your name?" "Ivy Elizabeth Walker." Like, that should have been the ending. Directed by Ryan Johnson or whatever you want to put on that. Like, that would have been the like I hate to do this, but like, I kind of talk about Clerks. Like M. Night Shyamalan, he should have ended it on the logical closure point. Not the 25 endings that followed.
Yeah, I think rewatching it, they probably lingered a little bit too long in terms of pacing with Ivy's journey in the woods. It's really gripping when the monster shows up, or Noah shows up, but it's probably just a tad a bit too long, and it kind of hurts the sort of pacing at the end. But it's such a great character. I don't mind spending a bit more time.
Or do you think the confrontation with Noah should have happened after she got the medicines?
Much for muchness on the way back. It could have been just as effective there as well. But we do get a ton of sort of world building, and like the fact that it's a private sort of security detail. Yeah.
And like, she can't see her own family name written on this guy's uniform, like at all. Yeah. So when he asks, "What's your name?" like, "Ivy Elizabeth Walker," it's such a powerful moment, and that could have ended the film. Like, roll the credits right there.
Yeah, and it's good they do explain it and put it into context. Now, whether like, there was a comment that I read where, so M. Night Shyamalan's character, and you catch the subtle detail, the news is just full of bad news, murders and slayings and death and
combat. There's a shout out to crop circles somewhere, and if you magnify one of them, like, to tie into signs or some shit.
Yeah, it's good how don't talk to people if they find out we're getting paid by an estate. So it's not a
wildlife preserve sanctioned governmental facility. It's a privately owned property.
Yeah, it's some dude's.
Which is why he's so nervous about getting supplies, because it has to be stocked. Like, you got to know. It's like Tio. You got to know what's coming in and going out, right?
Yeah. And like, I read a comment. I still find it hard to believe, even with bribing government officials not to fly over it, they're still.
To get a fly, like, has that ever happened in real life? I
don't think so. But
no, I don't think so either.
If people, like, that's the writer's explanation. If you think it's flimsy, fine, but you can't really say that they didn't explain it. Like, if they explain it and you say, yeah, I get that, but it's still really hard to believe that they can't see any aircraft at all. Okay, that's fine. That's the only explanation the film intends on giving you.
It's kind of like,
it or don't.
It's kind of like, how can no one else figure out, like, Batman is, no one else has this kind of money to finance this kind of lifestyle. But there's a lot of different, like, Jeff Bezos, like, why isn't he Batman? You can argue that. To sanction a no-fly zone, like, I believe, like, even Russia and, like, America, like, the greatest superpowers on the planet, have never been able to sanction no-fly zones. Like they can trigger wars and stuff like that, but there's never been a, you can't come here full stop. And we don't know where this is, by the way, but, you're not supposed to be asking those questions. Like, the stimuli that M. Night Shyamalan is giving you, you're asking the wrong questions. It's like what James Cromwell says in I, Robot. Now, that, detective, is the right question. You have to start asking the right questions. You're asking the wrong questions, is what's going on here. So, like, it's the walker... And I love how he says, do we have that service ladder nearby to help her get over the fence?
That's a really thoughtful little detail. Yeah, I like that one as well.
Yeah. Like, again, and a reflection of the original scene, she's walking through wearing the yellow cloak again because she has to sell to the townsfolk that the yellow cloak does work.
Yeah, and she was told to follow the stream as well and find her way back home.
The sound of the stream. Oh, man. There's too much awesomeness in this film. God, it annoys me.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific film. One of his best. It's...
Would you put it higher than Signs, or is it neck for you? Or Because that's the comparison. That's the comparison that people really want to know, don't they? So where does it stack with you?
I think that whole streak, I think Unbreakable, Signs, and The Village are him at his very, very best. Because like I said, when we kicked off this discussion, Split was extremely, critically acclaimed and well received. I thought that was a little bit overrated. I do. That's not to say it's a bad film. I think it's overrated. It's a really, really good film.
Yeah.
You don't often see it's a Split. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's not apparent, but it's a supervillain origin story, and it becomes apparent at the end. Bruce Willis's character from Unbreakable, which was a superhero origin story, they're part of the same universe, and they're on a collision course. This hero and this, terrifying monster. I thought Glass was really good, and a couple of his films I haven't seen, but just from sort of looking at them, they seemed a bit conceptually flawed. He did the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I love that show. I thought that was a really well done show.
Is that the Aang one?
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with it, but yeah, I heard it was pretty good.
It was never going to work conceptually the way they tried to do it. After Earth, that Will Smith one, it didn't look very interesting to me. And I haven't seen some of his newer stuff. I did see that one about the relatives, the crazy, the psychos.
Was that The Visit? I think it was.
Yeah, that was really well done. And his new one with Josh Hartnett looks really good.
I was going to ask you on one of his other films, but what was your take on this Lucius bedside scene when the townsfolk are running to meet Ivy? What did you think of this, like with the camera work? Because a lot of this is carried by the extras. Because you get Noah's parents with that moment. She was attacked and she killed one of those we don't speak of, and the two parents break down. What do you think of this long take here?
Yeah, they're committing to the lie. It's an interesting ending. I'm surprised we never saw a postscript with Lucius. He's pretty much sidelined for the rest of the film.
Exactly,
but they've decided to, and the village has an uncertain future. Their lies have been preserved, but another theme is lies compound. When we tell a lie, we have to tell two more lies to cover that one up, and so on, and it just grows and grows. So the village they've seemingly shored up its future, but there are little sort of pockets there that it may or may not last, which echoes Brendan Gleeson's character.
If it happens, it happens.
That's right, yeah. So it really cements and solidifies a lot of the themes. I was unsure what these still images mean in the credits. Is that in the future or in the past? Because you do see a
clothesline.
Well, you see a picture of Lucius in a field. Is that after he's healed, or is this before? I'm unclear what these pictures are meant to...
And also notice the watchtower is a photograph taken from inside the forest as well, as opposed to outside of it. So that's beyond the boundary.
Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous what's going on here. I maybe it is simple to explain, and I'm just missing the point. But
I think and like that's what I mean. Like the village. Again, like the kind of clashing thoughts that we've had on it tonight, like maybe the monster at the end should have been a real one. Well, maybe it's better that it wasn't a real one. That's what I think sparks the most conversation about it. My final thoughts on the whole thing is that, like all of the ingredients are there. They're definitely cooked to a C-, B-, B+, kind of, but there's something like that sprinkle of season is just kind of missing that gets it over the edge of Signs. This is right up there, but I still think Signs is M. Night Shyamalan's like end all be all. Like that's his T2. You could say that's probably because of the actors that he had, like Mel Gibson. Yeah, I mean we can argue that all night long. This, you would have to check the photo at the finish line, but I would say Signs wins out of this just by like one pubic hair. Maybe a couple of little tweaks here and there, and this could have been Signs times 10, Kaioken style. But that's my thoughts on it. Yeah, like it's you'll have to check the photo at the finish line. What's yours?
Yeah, I Well, it's hard because I've revisited Signs a lot. I haven't revisited this movie a whole lot over the years, but I purely based on watching it tonight and the other night, I give it an A. It was so much better than
The Village.
Yeah, it's so much better than I saw it the first time when it was first released. So again, I was a bit deflated by some of the reveals, but watching it again many years later, I have seen it in the interim, but sporadically. Like I probably watched it once every 10 years.
Like a little bit of background noise from time to time.
Yeah, now I've seen it twice in like 3 days, so I've doubled.
So maybe I opened up the jar, like I've opened the box.
Yeah, and I'm really at peace now with the modern day twist, and I'm really at peace and I'm okay with the monsters not being real because I think that I think the alternative, and it's hard because it's a self-defeating point I'm making because this film has been forgotten. It's not.
No, it's not because Signs gets all the headlines.
Yeah, and his flops get really hostile reaction. It's a strange one. But because the rules are different, because we know he's delivered excellent films like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable and Signs. So when he delivers a subpar film, the criticism is angrier, meaner, and nastier because we know he can do better. It's like J.J. Abrams never cops the sort of shit guys like Spielberg and Lucas and Shyamalan and Cameron do because no one expects much of him. Like he's delivered these ultimate C- movies that arrive with huge amounts of hype and flash and but they just fade away and no one cares because we're really indifferent to his films.
You brought up a good point because that really bothered me about the praise that Black Panther was getting in 2017 because Ryan Coogler directed that and he did Creed. And and he did Fruitvale Station with Michael B. Jordan, so a Ryan Coogler film that he's directed when he's doing it. When he sat down and did that Black Panther film, I understand the actors passed away and all that kind of stuff, but I couldn't feel the Ryan Coogler in it, at all. When you sit down to a M. Night Shyamalan film, even this one that he's producing that's coming out called The Watchers, you can feel that kind of presence in it. I couldn't feel that. You see that kind of thing going on, The Village. I still feel that presence all the time. And one aspect that I wanted to bring up, how you never directly see the monster, although in this film, the monster isn't real. In Signs, even though the alien is in the film, in the room with the Hesses, as Meryl is battling it with with a baseball bat, you still don't get a direct shot of it, and that's why we love M. Night Shyamalan. Less is more, but not to the sense that you're left to your imagination of what it, no, it's clearly 8 feet tall. He got on the house he got on top of the roof in a second. The roof is 10 feet high. Totally left, and that's why I think we're talking about this film tonight is, M. Night Shyamalan is the definition of less is more.
Yeah, and it would have been a tonal violation because the theme, having the monsters real in this, undercuts the theme of there's an element of violence in human nature. The monsters are us and the horrible things we do. It's not some hedgehog looking thing out in the woods. So yeah, it's a more courageous decision because it's pissing people off not having real monsters. So
what do you think, looking back on it, your closing thoughts on The Village? What do you think about it through a 2024 lens?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I was a bit caught off guard when you recommended it because, it's been a long time between drinks with me and this film. But, I really enjoyed watching it tonight, and I enjoyed watching it during the week. It really gets a lot of marks from me because of the restraint. Like you said, less is more. It's driven by a really understated, powerful performance by Joaquin Phoenix, and it creates the time and dramatic space for Bryce Dallas Howard to shine. And and I'm really at peace with a lot of the sort of decisions people were unhappy about at the time, and it's a shame it's been forgotten. There's not a lot of traction for this film online at all these days. It's been, I think, partly because he's delivered some real turkeys in the ensuing years, but he's a wonderful filmmaker. And I'm not, like, I don't know why I'm lavish. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a huge Shyamalan fan, but like, he's directed some stellar films that I really enjoy, because I have watched Unbreakable a lot and Signs a lot, and those sorts of ones. And yeah, I just think he's unfairly maligned. The criticism with him is a bit more concentrated and nasty, but I think other filmmakers sort of get away scot-free. I'm not sure why that is, but yeah, I just think so highly of this film, and I'm really at peace with it. I now consider it a really good movie.